This video is going to go over basic audio recording in GarageBand for iPad. So if you open up GarageBand, you may be brought to this screen, which is the My Songs screen. It's also possible if you haven't used GarageBand before, you'll be brought right to the next screen that we're going to see, which is the browser. But if you are brought to this screen, you want to create a new song. So you can tap the Create Song button. Tapping the Create Song button will bring you to the browser. In the browser, you can choose what tool you want to use to record in GarageBand. You'll notice that on the top of the page, there are two options. There is Live Loops, which is a sequencer that's in GarageBand that we are not going to use for this tutorial. Then the other option is Tracks. And Tracks lets you record something or use a digital instrument to record audio or music. So if you look through the options, you can see that there are some instruments that you can play digitally in the app. But the option that we want is audio recorder. This allows you to use the microphone in your device to record spoken word or record an instrument that you're playing in real life. And we're going to use this to record spoken audio. So you want to go to audio recorder and tap on that option. When you tap on that option, you are brought to your instrument screen. These are the controls for the instrument that you are using, which for this is a microphone to record spoken words. So you'll notice underneath the controls to play or record, there are these two options, Studio or Fun. Under the Fun option, this gives you some filters you can use when recording your voice. If you want to experiment with these, you absolutely can, but we're going to keep it on clean for now, so it just records whatever comes into the microphone. Then with the studio option, you can change some more specific options such as the tone and the input and output sound of what you're recording. For now, we're going to leave this all on just the default options. But the instrument view is good for changing these items and abilities, but what we want to use is the tracks view to see what tracks we have in this song. So first, let's get a quick tour of all the buttons on the top of the screen. Starting from the left, the icon with the piece of paper that's folded in the corner will bring you back to My Songs. So you can load a new song if you want, or you can start a new one. To the right of that button with the square and the two smaller squares on either side will bring you back to the browser, which will let you choose an instrument that you want to use. The next item, to the right of that, the third from the left side, is the tracks view, and that's the option that we're going to use in just a minute. And then to the right of that are the track controls, and these change more specific options about the track that we are recording. So before we look at the rest of the buttons, let's switch to the tracks view by selecting that item, which is third from the left. One of the advantages of recording using GarageBand is you can record multiple tracks in one song file. With something like Voice Memo, you just have one track and you're not able to manipulate it as much as you can in GarageBand. So on this screen, in the tracks view, we can see all the tracks in our song and we'll be able to see waveforms and be able to edit each of the tracks. So before we get to recording, in the middle of the screen, you'll see the playback and record buttons. The button in the middle is the play button. The button to the left will return to the beginning of the track, and the button to the right with the red circle is to record. To the right of that, you'll notice this blue icon that looks sort of like a triangle. What that is it is a metronome. What a metronome does is it makes a click track throughout the recording as you're going. So if you're recording a song, you can play along to the beat. The reason it's blue is because the metronome is currently turned on. So what we want to do is we want to tap that button to turn it off. Since we're recording just spoken words and not a song, we don't need the metronome turned on. The other icons to the right, we have this loop, which will let you include what's known as live loops in your song. So you can record some instruments and insert some things that are already built into GarageBand. So the live loops are useful if you want to add some audio cues to your track. Next, we have the gear icon, which will bring us to all the settings of the track. Then finally, on the far right, there is the question mark, which is the help button. This is actually very useful because if you tap on the question mark, it'll bring up some tooltips to give you some information about what things you can do in GarageBand. And you can just tap it again to toggle it off. So let's record our first track. So to do this, all we have to do is simply tap on the record button. Keep in mind that tapping record will bring us back to the instrument view, but we are recording. So let's record. So now we are recording our first track. You can see the levels coming up, knowing that GarageBand is recording our audio. So for now, let's just stop this. By tapping the square icon, that stops the recording. If we go back to the tracks view, you'll see that we have what we recorded, and we can press the play button to play it back. So now we are recording our first track. So as you can see, we recorded this track. Let's say you've recorded a track and you want to edit it. Let's say there's something in the middle that you want to remove. So by grabbing this cue on the top, we can move around to where we want to be in the song. And one great thing that you can do in GarageBand is you can split and remove parts of the track. So let's say we want to remove this pause here. We can go to the beginning of the part that we want to remove, and then double tap on the track to bring up this menu. We see the split option, and the split option will split the track wherever we have it selected. So if we tap split, we get this scissors icon. And if you drag the scissors icon down, it will split the track at that point. Next, because we want to remove this section, we can move over a little bit. We can double tap again. Use the split, drag it down. And now, as you can see, this section that we want to remove is separate. So now we can double tap that section, and there is the option to delete it. Once you delete a section, you can take the other parts of the track, you can move them, you can put them together, you can leave a gap, whatever you want to do. Now, let's say we want to record a second track. Let's say we want to do another take, and then afterwards we can decide which one we like better. So what we can do is if we go back to the browser, we can add a new instrument. But there's a little shortcut here to add a new track with a new instrument. So the browser button is the button with the square with the two squares on either side. If you hold down over that button, you will get this select instrument menu. And you can add a new instrument just with one tap. So let's add another audio recorder. Brings us back to the instrument view. And if we go back to the tracks view, you'll see that we now have two different tracks. So let's say we want to record our second track. We don't want our first track to play while we're recording. So what we can do is we can grab the left side of the screen and drag it to the right. And then we have these recording options for how the tracks sound. And the first icon on the left is to mute the track. So while we're recording the second track, we can tap this mute icon on the first track so it doesn't play. So now we can hit record again. And now we're recording our second take, which will record in a new track. Going back to tracks view, you can see that we now have our two tracks. So now you can have a bunch of tracks in one file and you can decide which one you like the most. But let's say we like our first track, so we're going to use that. So we can unmute it, mute the second track, and then now we want to export this. Let's say we want to send it to Google Classroom to attach it to an assignment. To export our song, we want to click on the paper icon in the upper left, which is My Songs. And we can see all the songs that we've made. So the song we just made by default will be My Song. If you hold your finger over the song, you can rename it. So let's call this test song and hit done. Then if we hold over the song again, on the bottom we can go to share. And then you have some options for sharing the song. The first option, song, will send an audio file, which is what we ultimately want. But the other two options are to send it as a ringtone or to send the project file so someone else can edit it. So let's use song. There are some audio quality options, but for now, let's just keep it as default. We'll use high quality. You can also add information about the name of your song and who created it, which you can add if you'd like. But when we're ready, we hit share on the upper right. And you can choose to send it to an app such as Google Classroom. One great thing about GarageBand is there are so many options, but it can be intimidating. So hopefully through this video, you learned how to do a basic audio recording.